Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another live video. I'm so excited to bring you these videos. So, announcement before we even get started, I will be going live every Thursday. Now, my goal is to try to go live at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, but the reality is that sometimes that's so hard. Hello to everybody coming in. Thank you for coming in. I meant to go live earlier, but it was a challenge. So here I am. I will be going live on Thursday mornings. So please note that on your calendar, and we'll be talking about all things making money with your writing. So if you're here, say hello, and I will be more than happy to say hello back. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Okay, so today I'm talking about 3 mistakes that you're making that's keeping you from writing your book. If you don't know already, I just released Content That Sizzles and Sells, which is a book that will help you to get your content game right and together. Okay. And the reason why I wrote that book is because I've had so many people, so many talented people talk to me about wanting to create content, but they're not knowing how to put their content together. They're business owners, they are coaches, they are speakers, but they don't have a plan for their content. So this book really walks you through the fundamentals and how to come up with content strategy so that you can begin to share that knowledge with the rest of the world and really establish yourself as a leader. And so, in light of the fact that that book just got published, and it's my fifth book, I really wanted to come on here because that's another place where I see people struggle is with actually writing their books, right? So I really wanted to come on here and do this live video for all of you who want to write books, but have some of these mistakes standing in your way and really how to solve them. So the first mistake that most people make when it comes to writing a book is thinking that writing a book is an impossible project. People begin to think that it's impossible, it's such a huge project. Oh my word, a book, when we think about any kind of book, and I have a few of my books here, any kind of book, we tend to think that I have to be super smart. I have to, sit down and dedicate so much time. I have to do so much research. And then we begin to tell ourselves stories that actually keep us from writing the book. But one of the things that I've learned over the last few years is that you can really sit down and in just a few hours a day, or even in as little as an hour a day, you can write words towards your book. Your book doesn't have to be written in one day. Your book doesn't have, you don't have to sit down and then, type your book up in one day and then be done. You really can plan to write your book over time and still get that book published. And so really thinking that writing a book is an impossible project that is going to take so much of your time and that, oh my goodness, it's going to be so hard is something that if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a published author, you need to take that out of your mind. You need to get rid of that idea or else it's going to cripple you. And I find that with anything and with everything that I've tried to do in life, usually the thing that's standing in my way is not that I can't do it. It's not that I don't have the knowledge. It's not that I don't have what it takes to do it. Most of the time it's mindset. So before you even venture into starting your book, realize that unless you work on your mindset, you are going to struggle with it. And here's the other thing too. We all have real lives, right? We all have, I don't know who doesn't have a real life, but we all have lives, right? You have a family, you have kids, you have work, you have relationships you have to take care of, you have responsibilities. And so we can also use all of those things as an excuse, right? Like, I have all these things I need to do. Writing a book is the last thing on my mind. But if writing a book is something that you've been wanting to do for the longest time, then it's important to take a look at those excuses and say, yes, these excuses exist, and yes, they are real, and yes, give credence to them, but realize that, we all spend our time doing the things we want to do, right? A lot of us will maybe come back from work, have some dinner, sit down and watch TV. Last night, right? I sometimes complain that I don't have time, but last night I had time to sit down on my couch and watch TV for 1 hour. I'm not saying we shouldn't relax. I don't believe in hustle culture. I don't believe in the fact that you shouldn't sleep or will sleep. I don't believe in that. I believe in working really hard, but I don't believe that you shouldn't rest, right? But by taking advantage of the margins and those pockets of time in your life, it's possible for you to begin to put your book together. The book content that sizzles and sells that I just published, I wrote that in November, and then I've been working on it on and off since then. I'm just working on edits, and finally, my plan was to get it published and launched in the first quarter of 2020 or 2021, which is exactly what I did. Same thing for my first book, Win at Freelance Writing. Same book thing for the other books I've written that are out of the business genre, right? So it's really important to realize that your book, there are going to be so many excuses, there are going to be so many obstacles, so many things that come your way and threaten and threaten your ability to write that book. But if you look at those excuses and give those excuses the respect they're due, and then also make the time to write your book, you will have a book. Okay, so that's the first thing, is thinking that writing a book is an impossible project. It's standing in so many people's ways. Okay, the second thing is not having a plan. So I find, and I used to think this too, but I'm here to tell you that if you don't have a plan for your book, the book will never materialize. So most of the time, people think that writers are inspired. I hear this in interviews a lot. What inspired you to write this song? What inspired you to write this book? And I think that the premise of that question is somehow authors magically get these bolts of inspiration, and then they sit down and then they type out based on that inspiration. But that is far from the truth. Most authors I know are very intentional with planning the book out. They're very intentional with outlining the book. They're very intentional about what's going to go into each chapter. They're very intentional with the words and language that they want to express with every book. I know authors who will travel for fiction authors, who will travel to locations, right? Because they want to set the book in a location, and they will travel to locations to study details about the area so that they can incorporate that into their book. That's all planning. And so I really want you to realize that writing a book has nothing to do, well, there is some inspiration to it, but really has nothing to do with magical inspiration, and has everything to do with strategically planning what you want to go into the book. When I was writing When I Freelance Writing, when I was writing Content That Sizzles and Sells, both of these books were planned way in advance of me actually sitting down to write the full book. Okay, and so I sat, and one of the things that I teach my coaching students, and if you're interested in exploring, you need some extra help and accountability as far as writing your book is concerned, you can go to gnontra.com/author coaching, or you can just go to gnontra.com, it's my name.com, and check out the program I have on that. But having a plan is important. And one of the things I tell my coaching clients is think about your book in 10 chapters. And I tell them what the first chapter is supposed to be, the second chapter, third, fourth, and then those middle chapters, and then what the last chapter is supposed to be. So sit down and can you take your idea? Okay, here's the deal. Here's something for the free 99. Can you take the idea that you have for your book? Take that idea, break it down into 10 subtopics. Can you take it? Let's say you want to write a book on parenting, right? And you have been a parent, or you want to write a book about, like my coaching clients, Mercedes wrote a book on newborns and motherhood during the newborn stage, right? And then she took that topic, and she's a nurse practitioner. She is a lactation consultant. She's been working with newborns and moms for years and years now, for over a decade. She has a decade of experience. So I said, listen, think about what you've been doing for the last decade, and can you give me 10 concrete topics you can talk about in this book you want to write? And she's like, of course. So she sat down, she wrote those 10 topics, and she's like, wow, this is easier than I thought. I know more than I think. And that's the thing, is a lot of people don't realize how much they know, because most of the time we don't write it down, or we don't really have the opportunity to inventory everything we know. But what you do when you are planning, when you create that 10 chapter outline, is you are writing down, you are taking an inventory of what it is that you know and what it is that will fit into this book. So having a plan is important. Inspiration authors and inspiration prolific authors, every prolific author I know, listen to, I myself haven't been, now I can say I am a prolific author because I have 5 books. Okay. Every prolific author has a plan. If you don't have a plan, you will not write the book. So failing to plan is planning to fail at your book. Okay, so that's the second mistake, is not having a plan. The first one was thinking it's an impossible project and mindset issues. This is going to be crucial, and I think it's crucial to foundational to everything, not having a plan. Thank you for those of you that are on. I see 2 of you on. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. The third mistake I want to talk about today is not building your audience. Okay. So another reason why a lot of authors fail. Now, it's said that maybe 90% of authors, I have to look up that statistic, but a large majority of authors will write a book and will not sell even 100 copies. I'm happy to say that in my career, I've sold more than 100 copies of my books. Okay. And so why that happens is because most of the time people think that they'll write the book, they'll upload it to a place like Amazon or whatever other platform is out there that they want to, to publish on. Or even if they go the traditional route, which I'll do a whole live on traditional publishing versus self-publishing. But most people think they will write the book, they'll put it up, and then people will automatically buy. And that's the mistake I made in the beginning of my author journey. Is I wrote this book. It was a really good book. Of people that read it loved it. People in my inner circle that I was able to sell it to. I don't think I sold more than 10 copies of that book. That book is still there. I don't think I sold more than 10 copies of that book. Okay. And here's why I didn't sell more than 10 copies of that book. I wrote this book without an audience, without anybody expecting it. And I just published it. And I was expecting that because it's out there in the world, people will find it. This is not true. Okay. You have to be intentional about, let me pull my seat closer. You have to be really intentional about writing the book for a specific audience and then launching that book to that audience. Now, there is something called writing to market. And a lot of fiction and nonfiction authors use this concept of writing to market. And when you write to market, what you're doing is you're writing to an existing market. You're writing to, you know that there is a group of people that actively reads these types of books. And so you're writing to that audience. Now, I started here really actively on YouTube, maybe about 3 years ago, and I've consistently built my audience. I've had a blog for years. I have an email. I have an audience, but it's an audience that is really interested in hearing about entrepreneurship, is in hearing about making money with your writing. That most of the people that end up in my audience are interested in that general subject area. And so if I go on Amazon and I find books, okay, Amazon is like sells about 70%, owns about 70% of the ebook market. So it's really hard to talk about self-publishing without talking about Amazon. But if I go on Amazon and I find that there are books that are written in that genre to that specific audience that's interested in entrepreneurship and interested in writing as a way of making money, that's validation that there is an audience for this. And if there's an audience for this, then I need to start attracting some of that audience to me so that when I write and publish that book, those people can find the book and read the book. Okay, this is how you sell books. So if you just write without any regard for whether there's a market for that book or not, it can be challenging. It's different. See, it's different because maybe you'd be thinking, oh, well, this person wrote this book. I don't know. I don't want to mention any specific book, and it took off, right? Most authors don't have control over that, right? No matter what any author tells you, no author has control over which one of their books is going to necessarily go viral and or be turned into a movie franchise, right? But what you do have control over is really studying the market, studying what they enjoy reading, and if that is something that you have expertise in, writing to that audience, that's what it means to write to market, writing to that audience so that your audience can find you. So one thing that I've learned recently, I didn't even know I was doing this, but then I read it in a book and I was like, yes, that's what I've been doing, is something called finding comparison authors. What's a comparison author? A comparison author is when you go find authors who are writing in the same industry and niche as you. They may not be writing about the same things, but they're writing on topics parallel to what you are writing about. So, writing content that sizzles and sells, that was not a mistake. That was not something I made up. I knew that there were people, first of all, in my audience who are interested in content marketing. And because I've been a freelance writer and do content marketing as my full-time job, that's something that I know people are interested in and people have come onto my channel for. So that first of all, that's important. Then secondly, there are authors on Amazon who have very successful books on content marketing and using content, well, on content marketing in general. There are not a whole lot of books on using content to build a personal brand. Some of that is built into those books, but not necessarily with regards to a personal brand. And I know that personal branding is another thing my audience is interested in. So by studying the market on Amazon and seeing that authors are already doing well with books on content marketing and planning your content and using content as a solo business owner, right? I found comparison authors who were writing in this particular vertical and doing very well with their books, right? And doing very well. So then I knew that if I write to that audience, first of all, I've already validated it with my internal audience and also with a broader audience because there are comparison authors who are writing in this same industry who are doing really well. Then I also increase my chances of doing really well. So it's really important as an author to think about your audience. Think about who is going to be at the other end of reading this book. For instance, I was reading something the other day, and the author was saying that there's no real niche for psychological thrillers, right? So she had merged two niches. She had taken psychological thrillers, and I think she had put it into a fantasy. And these are two different genres when it comes to fiction. Fantasy writing and psychological thrillers are like two different genres and two different sets of people read that. So she merges the two and she was like, no wonder I'm not selling as many books in this niche, right? Because ain't nobody reading psychological thrillers based in fantasy. Nobody's reading that. So even though she's selling some copies, she's not really doing much with those books. So I have found in my author journey that it's important to write to market. Definitely you can write something different and it could catch fire, but to encourage yourself, and you can do that for your own, like you can do it just for your own joy. But if you want to be successful at writing, if you want to be successful at selling your books and selling more than 100 books that most authors sell, okay, you are going to need to write to market. And writing to market is really writing to an existing audience and also taking a look at who your comparison authors are. I can tell you who some of my comparison, and actually it's really easy. If you go on Amazon right now and type in my name, you'll find my books. And if you look on the side of my author page, you'll see my comparison authors. One person is Mira Kuthand, and Mira has published several books in content marketing, online business, blogging, right? So that's one of my comparison authors. Another comparison author that is usually suggested close to my books on Amazon is Joanna Penn, who is somebody I actually follow quite a bit because I listen to her podcast, I read her books. She's been an author for over a decade now, and I really follow a lot of the advice that she provides. And so now, even though I have two books in the business arena, now she's a comparison author, right? So by really looking for comparison authors, you're setting yourself up for success so that you're writing to market. Okay, so for those of you just coming in, thanks for dropping in. Thank you, Ola. ¿Cómo estás? All right, so the three mistakes that you are making as an author who wants to actually sell books. Okay, the number one thing is thinking that writing your book is an impossible project. Okay, it's not an impossible project. You just need a plan. The second thing is not having a plan. All right, inspiration can hit, but it's very rare. Most prolific and successful authors actually have a plan for writing their books. The third mistake you may be making is really not, before you write your book, not considering the audience that will be reading your book, right? You have to think about the audience. You have to think about your comparison authors. You have to think about who is already reading this book. Because if you write to market, what you end up doing is you end up increasing the chances that your book will sell. Because here's the other thing that Amazon does. You know, when you look on Amazon and when you go to buy a book on Kindle, you will notice that it will say something like, people who bought this book also like these types of books. And so books are suggested, several of them. Sometimes I see as many as 7, 10 books suggested to me when I'm looking at one other book, right? What is Amazon doing? Amazon is pushing your book in front of people who are likely to read. And if this video has been helpful, please hit the like button. Thank you. Thank you. But they are putting your book in front of people that the algorithm thinks is more likely. Everything is built on algorithms, right? YouTube is an algorithm, Instagram, LinkedIn, right? So understanding who your comparison authors are really helps with Amazon saying, oh, if people like Mira's books, they're going to like Gertrude's books. If people like Gertrude's books, they're going to like Joanna Penn's books, right? And that's how it works. But if you write in a niche or genre or for an audience that doesn't exist, Amazon doesn't really know where to put your book. And so it becomes difficult, and it may become a favorite, right? It's like TV shows. Like I feel like there's certain TV shows that should have caught on way more than they did when they were on air, right? And then the show goes off air and everybody recognizes, everybody, like 5 years later, everybody's watching it. It's like, wow, this was such a great show. Why did it not continue, right? So it's the same thing. You don't want to write a book and let people discover 5 or 10 years later that, wow, this was such a good book. How didn't we discover this, right? You want people to start discovering it right now, all right? So that you can actually sell those books. So those are the 3 big mistakes that I see authors make, that I'm telling you, don't make these mistakes. I have also made them. So it's from real experience. So this was fantastic. I'll take any questions. I will be going live on Thursday mornings. Time wise, it's going to be challenging for me to tell you, but Thursdays you can expect me to be going live here on the channel talking about authorship, writing, and making money with your writing. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate all of you. And I'll just kind of stick around for any questions before I go off air. This has been fantastic. Thanks to all of you for coming. Hi, Jan Culture Books. Hello. And you may hear a child in the background. Yes, Mom Live. Do you have any copywriting selling books to read? Do you have any copywriting selling books to read? Oh, do I have any books? Like I'm thinking you're asking me about book recommendations. to read to sell your books? Is that what you're asking? Just trying to make sure I understand the question. Oh, yes, yes. Okay, yes. So I do have some recommendations. I would say that anything written by Joanna Penn, she has a series called Books for Writers. Written a whole, I think it's 12 books in the series. She's written a whole series of books, and it goes from everything from having a business plan as an author to writing fiction to writing nonfiction. She really does a good job for us authors and writers. So I highly recommend her books. I also am going to recommend her podcast. Another person, I think this is somebody that I love. A child. Yes, there's a child in the background. Um, yeah, that's somebody that I follow quite a bit. There are a few other authors out there that are really helpful. Also, recently I came across self-publishing formula. I got a course from them because I want to learn some higher level stuff about fiction. So self-publishing formula is a good podcast, and I don't think he has books. No, he's mostly written fiction books, and I think he's made over $1 million selling his books as a self-published author. So he there's a lot to learn from him. So I don't necessarily have recommendations on that. I've just listened a lot to Joanna and self-publishing formula, and I read her books too. So that's how a recipe book is awesome. I think recipe books are good. My husband has a recipe book. He has like I have to help him publish soon. But yeah, I think recipe books are good because people are always looking for recipes, and especially during this, season that we're in where most of us have been confined to our homes. It would be great. So yes, publish it. I think recipe books are slightly different because they may not be like thick books. Well, some of them are thick. But yes, publish it. If you have some unique recipes, publish it. We are from Ghana, and I want to publish some Ghanaian recipes that my husband makes. So definitely have to get my game up to speed there and publish those books. Yep. One thing that I will say though before I leave is that make sure you have a good book cover, okay? A good book cover. So people judge books by their cover. I know that your mama told you don't judge a book by its cover, but we all do. Okay, I know we all do. A lot of people will judge this video based on the thumbnail, whether they want to watch it or not. You will judge a book on its cover. Think about how you purchase books. If the book cover doesn't appeal to you, you're going to say deuces, right? So please invest in a good book cover. I can do a whole video on that. I personally use Design Crowd to crowdsource my covers. And it's a platform you can go, you can specify the you can specify the specifications of the project. Like, I want to cover that looks like this and this and this and that, right? And then you can put it out to about 5 different designers, and they will send you their ideas of, and you can choose and select. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Young culture books, absolutely. You can select the one that resonates with you the most. You can definitely tip the people that sent you ideas. You don't have to pay everybody, but then whichever book cover you select, you will pay that person. And you also have the choice to ask them to edit. Once you choose a cover that you like, you can ask them like my book, the one that just came out, Content That Sizzles and Sells. Everybody should go get that. Content That Sizzles and Sells. It's on Amazon right now. I went to Design Crowd, and same thing with a few other books I've written. I went to designcrowd.com, and on designcrowd.com I knew exactly what I wanted, right? I knew exactly. And here's the other thing: when you see what your comparison authors are doing, it also gives you an idea for what your book cover should look like. So if you write like in fantasy, if you write a psychological thriller, if you write a romance, for instance, the book covers are funnily similar, right? And yes, standing out is a good thing. You should. You can definitely have your own style to it, but you don't want to necessarily break the cadence of that, or else people don't buy the book. I thought I could do that for one of my books, and I was like, no, I'm going to do something else. Nobody bought the book. I have to revamp it. I have to revamp the cover for that book. The book is good, but nobody is buying the book based on the cover alone. They see it. I know that they see it, but they don't click on it. So that matters. So whatever the book is, whether it's a recipe book, whether it's whatever the book is, just make sure to have a good cover. So this was fantastic. Thank you so, so much for hanging out with me. I will see you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I will see you all next week on Thursday again. And if there are topics that you want me to talk about as far as books and authorship goes, please let me know. Let me know. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm here on YouTube as well. Let me know, and I'll be happy to make those videos. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye bye.